So, Jen, Tom, is this recording going to be on our website or at the library?
The recording,
It'll
Kim
be
usually
on
gets
the
it on the
library website.
OCMGA website.
It will be on the OCMG.
Oh.
She's been doing that. She's still doing that, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll be on the Kimberly Library YouTube channel as well.
Has she been posting the Appleton ones also? I hadn't seen those.
I don't know. Let me look.
Yeah, because their addresses are extremely complicated looking, so.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, Appleton might have a different way of recording it too. Let's see. Education.
Well, Jody, why are you so apologetic for eating dinner?
Welcome, everyone. We're in our, we'll be starting in a few minutes. We're going to give people some time to file in. If you have any technical problems, you can put them in the chat. We also have a Q&A that you can put questions in during any time during the session. I generally like to do the session and then do questions at the end. Okay, there's house plants, herbs. It looks like at least some of the Appleton ones are on the website.
They are, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I see the Aldo Leopold, and I know that was with Appleton. There's quite a few on there. So if you're all looking for other gardening videos, they're on the Outagamie County Master Gardener's website. And we'll get started in a few minutes. Give people time to settle in. Get used to, this might look a little different. This is a webinar format, so you won't be able to see yourself. You'll see us maybe. We're already getting thank you for this. It'll be a fun night. It's a good one this week. Okay, I think people are filed in who are coming. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jill from the Kimberly Library. I'm also a Master Gardener, and I'm here with Tom Wenzel, who is a Master Gardener who has been planning this Master Gardener Presents you've been enjoying all season. It's in the Kimberly Library and also at the Appleton Library, so there's extra ones. And we're here tonight with Terry Barrett, who is the chair of the committee that takes care of the grounds around the Outagamie County Master Gardeners Extension Gardens. So he's going to give us a wonderful tour tonight of the gardens in all seasons. These gardens are maintained by like 35 volunteers as part of their certification. So Terry, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Jill. I appreciate it. Well, hello, everybody. I hope that tonight what we can do is turn this sort of magic little hidden gem of a set of gardens and get it out there is for more in a more public sort of way. The gardens started in the early 2000s when the Outagamie County Master Gardeners Association made a deal with the Extension to start a garden right in front of the door that goes into the Extension office as a way to gain some office space in the Extension Center. And over the years from then, it has just grown and grown and grown to the point now where there are a whole bunch of gardens all the way around the extension center. I've been associated with this program since 2017. And in 2018, I was asked to take over the grounds committee for a year until we could get organized and get somebody elected as the chair of the grounds committee. And it turned out that I would end up doing that. So, okay, so let's get going. Let me go to the next. Okay, there we go. So first of all, what I wanted to do was situate the gardens in Appleton for those of you who may not know exactly where it's at. So I've got a little map here, and you can see that this is Wisconsin Avenue, and this is Blue Mountain Avenue. Going north, you're going out towards the community college out there. So this is the freeway, and that's downtown. So if you're coming from the freeway, you'd be going this way, and right on this corner is the parking lot, and there is this is the extension office right here, and our gardens are. This is the extension office right here, and we have 12 gardens. So I'm just going to run through this because this is a public space. This is owned by the county, and you're welcome to come over and tour these gardens at any point. In fact, people come over and wander through. I've been over there lots and lots of times when people have just wandered through, bring their bike over and take a look. And there's seating around and picnic areas. So it's a nice place to come for lunch and have a look at the gardens and that sort of thing. So each of these gardens has a Outagamie County Master Gardener's sign someplace on the garden so it can be identified. This number one is a rain garden. And then right next to the rain garden is the original garden, is what's called the welcome garden. It's right out in front of the door for the extension. And then right around the corner here is a big old sugar maple tree. And just a couple of years ago, we decided to try and do something with this area because there was no grass underneath the big old maple tree. So we started planting bulbs, and a person's taken it over, and we call that the picnic garden because a lot of folks from the extension center come over here and pull up a table right here and have a picnic. Then we've got this garden right here is, see if I can move this a little bit, that'll help me, I think. Yeah, this number 4, that's what's called the memorial garden. And it's a shade garden underneath a flock of cottonwood trees. And at some point in the 2000s, the Master Gardeners decided to set up a program so that when a Master Gardener died, they would buy a stone and have it engraved and then place it in someplace in this garden. So there's several of those stones that are engraved and sitting in this garden. And it's a beautiful little garden. I love it. I really like that. It is a beautiful spring garden. Oh, it's fantastic. Number 5 is a rose garden. The rose garden is, over the years, I've had some trouble with it. It's been hard to keep roses going there, but in the last 2 years, the person who has taken that over has really done an excellent job. We didn't lose any roses last winter, and I think that it's really going to turn into a beautiful spot. So I think you're going to really like that. And this garden out here is called the Impact Garden. It's sort of on the corner of Wisconsin and Blue Mound. And so the idea of that garden is to have a lot of color throughout the season. so that people who are driving by can get a 2-second or 3-second flash of a really pretty garden. Then number 7 is our herb garden. What we've tried to do here in the last 2 or 3 years is to establish some perennial herbs for people who are interested in medicinal herbs and that sort of thing. Number 8, this garden right here is our Hosta garden. The person who is responsible for setting this up and doing it has a national presence in the National Hosta Garden Society and is doing a really, really remarkable job with this. It's a young garden right now. Most of the hostas have been in the ground only for a couple of years, but I can tell you right now, in the next 2 or 3 years, that garden is really, really going to become spectacular. This area back here behind the extension, we call the Pollinator garden. It was originally set up as a little prairie, and then sort of went. It was not used appropriately, or just sort of late. People weren't doing anything back there. So about 3 years ago, we had 2 or 3 people who decided to turn it into a pollinator garden. And they worked really, really hard in this area and cleared it out. The whole year they worked in the summer to clear everything out. And then in the February, they laid about, they had 5-gallon buckets of perennial wildflower seeds that were laid out on the snow. Now, this is the second season for those seeds, and they are already really, really starting to show out. So it's going to be, this thing is going to be beautiful in the next few years. It's spectacular right now. Number 10 is what we refer to as a sharing garden. It is a fenced area to keep the deer out. And it was originally used as a training area for new master gardeners. And now it is used as a fruit type garden, fruit and berries and that sort of thing. And then you can't, let's see if, I don't know if I can, there it is, number 12 up here is an area in front of the Valley Packaging operation. It's sort of the building at the far end of the parking lot. And we agreed to do an entrance garden for them in order to be able to use some office space in their building. This year, because of the COVID, we haven't really done much over there because a lot of the garden has to do with window boxes, and the clients do the watering. So we didn't do the window boxes. We didn't do much over there this year, but we'll be back at it again next year. All right, so let's move on, maybe. I'd like to move on. Next, there we go. Okay, so this is the parking lot, and those are Bradford Pears in full bloom in early spring, and that parking lot has several of those Bradford Pears. And we have a master gardener who does all of the tree trimming for all of the trees around the extension center. There are a lot of trees, and he really does a great job with those. But in the spring, those Bradford pear provide a beautiful background for the gardens. So we'll move on to all right, so this is a rain garden. This is for those of you who have never heard of a rain garden, the idea is that you have a downspout coming off your house or your building, whatever, and you run that water from the runoff into a hole in the ground. It can be 2 or 3 feet deep, and then you plant plants that are that can handle really wet ground. And this is a sort of a spring shot of that garden. The fellow who did this put these little pink guys in there as a joke for me, really. What he didn't realize is I love those things. I think they're great. But this garden, the year before this, they went in and cleaned out this area pretty heavily because the plants were getting really overgrown. They were really doing well in that garden. So this is what it looks like in the summertime. So that's the same from a different perspective, looking at the other direction. And that's more like what happens in the summertime. That's Baptisia, and there's all kinds of stuff in there. And so it's interesting to look at. And then right next to the rain garden is the welcome garden right here. So that's the entrance to the extension center. And this garden is probably the oldest garden out there that we have. Lots of very mature plants of all sorts. The guy who takes care of this garden will occasionally put a new plant in, but generally his idea is to maintain the plants that are there and let them develop to their fullest potential. And it really looks nice. It looks nice in the spring, and you can see in the summertime that it just starts really showing off. It really has a presence. That's a beautiful old crabapple tree there that when it's in bloom, it really looks beautiful. These are false sunflowers that I used to have when I was in Canada. I really liked those things. They were really pretty. And that's tall phlox called David, one of the most beautiful white tall phloxes you could ever have. Nice little stone path through it, a little garden spot where you can sit. So everybody's welcome to stroll through this little path, have a seat, enjoy the garden. Okay, the next garden is the picnic garden. The picture on the left is it's a winter shot of the old sugar maple tree. And it is a big, old, beautiful hardwood tree. And you can see here in the summertime that it produces a very heavy shade canopy. And underneath that canopy, there was no grass. So the committee decided to try and do something there. So the first thing we did is we mulched this whole area around here, and it took a lot of mulch that's a pretty good sized area. And then a person volunteered to do a garden along the back. Well, this whole thing as a garden. So that just got started last year, and now this year. So she's got that's a hard place to do a garden because it is so shady. But she's got several plants she's got put in there. And we also planted a bunch of daffodils in this area here so that they come up before the tree produces its leaves. So it's a good spot for daffodils. And we also have some small blue anemone that we planted last year that are going to spread out underneath the daffodils. So that's what it sort of looks like in the spring. And this was last spring. And every year there'll be 2 or 3 times as many next year as there were this year in this daffodil bed. And this is a mix of all kinds of daffodils. So some of them are early bloomers, some of them are blooming in the middle of the season, and they're late bloomers. So there's all kinds of daffodil mix in there. Okay. And this is some shots of the memorial garden. There's over here, you see a little bit of the parking lot, and that big rock right there is engraved with the sign with Memorial Garden on it. And one of the plants that I really like a lot are these hellebores, these Lenten roses that bloom in early spring, and there are probably 12 to 15 of these Lenten roses over there in that garden, and they will be blooming in April. So they're very early, and they put a really beautiful spot of color into an area before hardly anything else is going on. A little bit later, you get these trilliums, which again are just gorgeous. And what we did last fall is we planted, I want to say 500 perhaps tulips. They're called species tulips. So these are tulips that are the parents of all the tulips that are sold now as these big fancy tulips. So they tend to be a lot smaller. They bloom earlier. They're a lot easier to perennialize, and they are just gorgeous. They're very, in their own way, they're just spectacular. But they're a lot smaller, a lot more dainty, right? So we've got some nice stands of these species tulips going on in the Memorial Garden. And of course, we got this nice, beautiful peonies that blooms in the spring. And I really like this. This is a single peonies. So a single flowers rather than these big double flowered peonies that are mostly sold these days. The nice thing about these for me is that they don't droop so much when it rains. They stay more upright. They're not as likely to sort of fall over. And it puts a beautiful, beautiful display out when they're in bloom. So that's the Memorial Garden more in the summertime. It is just a gorgeous shade garden. The plants that are in here have been allowed to just perennialize. So they've got big swaths of various sorts of shade plants, hostas, and various ginger and all kinds of things in here. It's really a very nice, I love this garden. For me, it's a sort of a Zen garden. It's a place to go sit down on the bench. There's a bench there, have a seat at the bench and just sort of kick back and view the world. It's a beautiful place to be. And it's a nice shade in a hot summer day. It's a good shade spot. If you look through the Memorial Garden, going out towards back here is Wisconsin Avenue. So through the Memorial Garden, the next garden out towards Wisconsin Avenue is the Rose Garden. And the Rose Garden has got arbors on both ends. There's a brick pathway going right down through the middle of the Rose Garden, and on both ends of that pathway are arbors with clematis on them, and some climbing roses too. So in the early June is a wonderful time to view the various clematis that are over there in the garden. And then this gives you a shot of the roses that are being put in there. When I first joined the Master Gardeners in 2017, I think there were probably 10 or 12 roses in the garden. And now there are something around 30. And she has set up areas for 5 or 6 or 7 more. And we haven't lost any roses last year. So this is a really nice little rose garden to explore. Very, really pretty. All kinds. There are tea roses, floribundas, grandifloras. There's a couple climbers. There's 2 rose trees she just put in. So it's a large variety of roses that you can explore. And I might add that here over the last 2 years, what we've been doing is we've gotten all the people to identify as many of the plants in these gardens as we can. And then we set up a database of all of the plants that we have in all the gardens. And then last winter, we built plant markers for all the plants that we had identified. So for most of the plants out here, there will be a nice little brass marker with information about the scientific name, the variety of the plants. So that's really a nice thing for the roses. So you can tell what kind of rose it is in case you might be interested in going home and buying yourself one of these roses, just like the one you saw here. Then if you leave through the rose garden, go ahead and going this way out towards Wisconsin Avenue, the next thing you'll run into is the impact garden. What we've tried to do in the impact garden is establish it in a way that produces big swaths of color from early spring as far into the fall as we can manage. And we keep working to do that. This picture on the left is looking back towards the part of the memorial garden, and the big sign here on the sort of the edge of the memorial garden out towards Blue Mound, we stuck a whole bunch of daffodils around that. That looks really nice in the springtime. And these red tulips look great. They are spectacular, man. They're big and showy, and we're going to stick some more in this fall for next spring. So after the tulips and daffodils die back a little bit, the next thing that's going to show up in the impact garden are these alliums. We have alliums that are spread out all through the garden, and they are anywhere from 2 to 4 feet tall, with great big purple flower heads on them. They look great. I know I've got a lot of comments on how beautiful those allium look, sort of spread out through the garden. And in amongst these are iris. This white iris that's blooming right here, these are called immortality. So they bloom about the same time the allium show up, and they will bloom again in the fall. If you're nice to them, give them a little fertilizer at the right time. These guys are reliable rebloomers. They're called immortality, and they produce beautiful, big flower heads. With on each stalk, they'll produce 6 or 8 flower buds. So that's a really nice iris to have for your garden. This is this impact garden more in the summertime. We have around the edge of all the way around the edge of the garden are planted daylilies, a really tall, beautiful daylily, a yellow one that is a blooming monster. These things produce lots and lots and lots and lots of flowers. At the same time, on the outside of the daylilies, we planted a whole raft of dwarf Asiatic lilies. And there are 3 different colors: they're red, yellow, and what's the other color? I don't remember right offhand what the other color is. Oh yeah, yellow. I guess it's orange, sort of an orange color, right? So these Asiatic lilies will bloom all around the outside, and just about the time they're starting to go back, then these iris will come out with these yellow iris. And then we've put in all kinds of tall Asiatic lilies, some trumpet lilies, and some Oriental lilies. I think Orientals are my favorite because they're the lilies with flower heads that are maybe 5 or 6 inches wide, and they have this most wonderful perfume that they emit. It's just really something. And and then there's all kinds of other perennials in this garden spread out through the garden. But so it really puts on a nice show in the summertime. Okay, we're doing good here. It's about a half an hour. Okay, so this is the herb garden. The people who are doing the herb garden donated this arbor and then planted a honeysuckle, a really nice honeysuckle on each of the 3 corners here. And in one season, that honeysuckle has taken over that entire arbor, and it just blooms away. And then out here, we've got all kinds of various kinds of herbs that are perennial type herbs. Also, to give it some spring color, in the spring we planted a bunch of species daffodils. These are the guys that will produce, they have smaller flowers, but they will produce multiple flowers on each stalk. And then we got some hyacinths in there, just to try and spruce it up in the springtime to give people something to look at. All right. So that's a summer view of what the herb garden looks like, with these herbs in sort of full bloom. And this is another view over here. We have a bench over here, and you can see this is a really nice lavender that blooms all summer long. It's gorgeous. It's really nice. And down this way, if you were to go down this little path right here, going back towards the back of the building, the building's off to our right now. That's the Hosta garden. So the Hosta garden is right behind the herb garden. Okay, so these are just spring shots of the Hosta garden. Of course, it's under a lot of shade. We've put a few bulbs in to brighten out a little bit up in the springtime. We've got some, these are Dutch iris. They're bulbs rather than I'm getting old timers disease. I can't tell you what the tall bearded iris are not bulbs. They're rhizome, but these are true bulbs. And so we planted some of those to give it some spring color. And you can see that there are a lot. There are something like 88 hostas that have been planted in this garden. And they're sort of spread out, and they're spread out for a good reason, because these guys are going to, in 3 or 4 years, they're going to get huge. And so the person who is controlling this garden wants each one of those hostas to have sort of its own space so it can grow to its maximum size, so you can appreciate the beauty of each individual hosta. So this is what it looks like more in the summertime. You can see it's this whole long run of hostas down along here. This is back looking straight down the paths that he's built in there. It's a nice little stroll. It's a beautiful little area. You can see here's the county puts benches and picnic tables out for people to sit in and have lunch and stuff. It's just a nice area to explore. Then the next area in the back is what we call a pollinator garden. This is the area that with all the perennial seeds went into 2 years ago. The picture on the right is a bench that was built by a couple. The woman is a master gardener and her husband. And then it was donated to the master gardener program, and another master gardener lady used her artistic talents to paint the bench. It's a beautiful little bench, and it sits right out here along this path for an area you can sit and watch the various kinds of birds and bees that are going to be using this beautiful area. So let me show you what it looks like now in the summertime. Already, this is just the second summer, and these folks that did this pollinator garden were told that the second year would be okay, but it would be the third year that would really, really start to show out. Well, I'm telling you, if the third year is going to be better than the second year, it is going to be something, because it is gorgeous out there. There are, you could spend a long time trying to count the number of individual flowers that are in this pollinator area. Let me tell you, it is something. And we are going to, or not, I am not, but the people who are running this garden, they are going through, and they are as these seeds get more mature, where they start to bloom, they're going through and identifying each of the plants, and then we'll be putting markers down for not for everyone, of course, but we'll put markers down in places where you can see, so you can tell what the various flowering plants are. We'll probably do that next year. We'll probably make the markers, some of the markers this winter. That's, of course, an ongoing project, because we are changing what we do every year in all these gardens. So we're always updating what's in the gardens, and then we have to change the plant markers and that and so forth. Very nice. No, right here, this picture here on the right, this is our compost area. You can imagine, excuse me, you can imagine that we have a lot of plant material that is to dispose of in the fall. If you've seen these gardens, the October and November is the time of cutting all that stuff down and hauling it back here. And so we have a master gardener who volunteered to build these compost bins, and they donated them to us. And she handles the composting, and she uses what's called a hot composting method. So you have some green or carbon type material, the plant material, and then a lot of vegetables go in there to get, so that stuff gets composted very quickly. And she's been doing a great job with that. It's hard, it's a lot of work, but she's been doing a great job with it. And then let me go back. Let me go back for a second. You can see from this view, right? Is it this view? Let me see. Get my glasses on here. Yeah. So if you look at that little sign right there, that's a sign just saying don't spread any bug killer, weed killer, or anything in this area. And then back behind that sign, you see that fence. That's the sharing garden. So we'll move to that one. Okay, so that's the sharing garden. And what the people who are running that sharing garden are doing is they have put in several fruit trees. There are 2 or 3 or 4 fruit trees. I think there are 3 fruit trees that have been there for several years. A couple of apples, an apple tree, a plum tree. There's a grape arbor here, and they've put in a peach. If I get it right, peach, and I think oh gosh, what was the other one? Maybe a pear tree. I can't remember offhand. But anyway, they put in some new trees, new fruit trees, and these little these little guys that are hanging off the limbs, they're filled up with gravel, and the idea is to weigh the limbs down so you get a tree that is spread out, so that rather than going up, you want the leaves or the limbs to go on out. So then on the side over here is an area where there's some strawberries, and there's some raspberries in there, and they're starting. And then the whole idea of this is that in the fall, that any fruit that the birds don't get, that will all be donated to food pantries. So here's some of the strawberries. This is a picture of those cups that are holding those limbs out, so that we get a nice open framework to those new trees. That's the compost area. Here you can see the piles of plant material that we get there in the fall that we use. All right, and then the last of the gardens is the Valley Packaging entrance garden. And there's a little flagpole, and they did a little garden around the flagpole. This was not this year, this is last year. These are photographs from last year, because we haven't done much over there this year, but we'll be back there next year, so it'll look great again next year. And I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are about 8 large window boxes on the building, and they planted all of those window boxes, and they were spectacular through the summer not this summer, but last year. They really did a great job. And the clients who work at the Valley Packaging were largely responsible for doing the watering of these window boxes. And they did a great job. It really brightened the place up. And I know that the clients loved to be able to get out there and do a little bit of work on these flower boxes. And then towards the entrance, this is this little part of this. You can see this little pavement right here. It comes around this way, and it's just the entrance to Valley Packaging. And so these folks that were doing the Valley Packaging garden decided to sort of have a sort of a whimsical little area with all kinds of little gnomes and interesting little creatures and characters sitting around various spots underneath the various things. There's see a little guy with it sort of looks like me, actually, with a, yeah, there you go. Yeah, it looks just like me, really. It's my brother, I think. His name's Tom. Yeah. And so anyway, we got these gnomes and their little houses and stuff. And I'm telling you, it is just wonderful. I mean, every time I go over there, I couldn't help but laugh. It was just so cute and so nice. And we got lots and lots and lots and lots of comments from the clients and the parents of the clients who really, really were appreciative that the people who did these gardens did this for them. It was really nice. What a thoughtful thing to do. I would, personally, I would never have thought to do it, but it was such a good idea. Golly, I'm telling you. You give people a chance, they just come up with the most wonderful ideas. I'm telling you. Okie doke. I think that's about it for me. I was asked to put in a plug for the Gardener's SOS. It is a program that Master Gardeners runs, and I think this guy sitting over here, this Mr. Wenzel, is largely involved with the Gardener's SOS. And it is a place where you can send in a question about home gardening, and you're going to get an answer based on science within a couple of days. Am I right, Tom?
Yep. And if you have any questions about specific plants or areas that Terry's talked about, send us an email, and then we'll get you connected. The one thing that is really great about this garden is that it's something you go there, you can go there anytime, 24/7. You can go there at midnight if you want, but there is something in there that you can directly translate to your own garden.
You bet.
Something, and that's the intention of the whole thing, is to give people some new ideas. And Terry's done a wonderful job of pulling this together. And we really appreciate the work that he has done. One other comment that I have is that through the Appleton Library on August 7th, we're going to be featuring another Master Gardener garden, and that is from Door County, the Garden Door. So you've seen what Outagamie County Master Gardens have done to benefit the community. Now this is another one that Door County has done. So if you want to make your cherry run or your apple run, go up there and definitely take in a tour of that garden also. If you have any questions, we can field them now.
We don't have any questions in the box yet, so thank yous from people who enjoyed the tour. I do have a question though. In the sharing garden with the fruit trees, are they training them to go along that fence?
Well, you know what? That was done a long time ago. And that tree has been there for several years and hasn't been trimmed up much. And so I think what they're going to do in the sharing garden is they're going to uncouple it from the fence and let it go back to more of a normal tree. But it was set up as a espalier type tree. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that was originally intended to be an espalier.
Yeah.
To demonstrate that gardening technique, but that's a technique that is extremely specialized and not everyone's going to be interested in that. So it's probably convert that back to a format that the home gardener would be more likely to use.
Yeah, we have a master gardener who is also a fruit tree specialist who we've invited in to take a look at that particular tree and help us sort of trim it back in a way to turn it more into a regular type tree.
Okay, so we do have a question. In the photo of the Helleborus, were the leaves trimmed to show the blooms?
Yes. So I can talk about hellebores a little bit. I'm relatively new to this area. We moved here, well, I guess 5 years ago. No, I guess I'm not new anymore, right? But before we lived here, we lived in Dayton, Ohio, and I volunteered at a shade garden of about 40 acres that was started around 1900. And the lady who started it loved hellebores. And so there are, and it's in a sort of a ravine. I mean, this is a spectacular garden. I got to tell you, it's one of my all-time favorite gardens. But there's this one ravine with the side hill that was all hellebores, the whole thing. There must have been 5,000 hellebores along that hill. And in the spring, and I didn't know very much about hellebores, but in the spring, I mean, in the early spring, like in March, right? This is in Dayton, so it's a little bit south of here. We would be up on that side hill, cutting all the old leaves completely off of the plant in order for the blooms to be able to come out and show. If you don't cut those back, then they won't get a chance to be out in the sun, and they'll tend not to seed. They won't produce little babies in the future. So we would spend hours and hours and hours and hours cutting back the big old leaves from the last year. And the woman who ran that garden would be over there looking at you. And if you snipped off one of those buds from a new flower, she'd be all over you. So yeah, you want to cut those leaves back, get them out of there so that the new flowers can show. And then all these new leaves will be in the middle of summer. Once you do that, you get a great big beautiful plant that is real healthy and looks great. Yep.
Then we have a question about how large is this area? Is it acres or is it small?
Oh, I'd say it's if you started thinking about all the grass area that's associated with the gardens, I'd say it's probably 3 acres. What do you think, Tom? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I have no perspective, but each of the individual gardens are small. So if you want to take a tour of it, and you can go and look at 1 or 2 of the gardens.
Yeah.
Come back in a couple days, look at a couple of the others. So to do the whole tour, maybe a couple hours if you really spend your time with it. But if you only have 15, 20 minutes, there's gardens for that also.
Yeah, you bet. Yep.
Super. There's many thank yous. I don't see any more questions. Thank you for being here, Terry. It was very informative and interesting. And
You're welcome. Please, you're welcome to come. We'd love to have you over there.
yeah, somebody said they really like the pollinator and the places to sit. So yeah, that's nice. So nice. So yeah, now everybody, when you go visit, you'll know what you're looking at.
Yeah, we got lots of signs, so that's we try to help out in that way.
And like I said, if you have any questions about the extension gardenings or miscellaneous gardening questions, send us an email at the Gardener SFS and we'll help you out.
All right,
Or I'll tell you what, if you're driving by and you see this old guy with a beard and a hat out there working in that impact garden, honk, because that's me.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Pete. Folks.